What's up guys, I'm Joe and this is a Bradford pool fence. Okay, on this pool area, we came in after the masons had done these columns. So when we first started looking at this, it was just a concrete pad for the pool. And we coordinated with both the homeowner and the builder on our plan here. So originally we had planned on anchoring our post before this travertine went on to the concrete, and then, but I'll show you what we ended up doing there. And then we came in after the columns were up so that we could integrate the fence into these columns. So just kind of order of operations there. We had the pool decking down and then the columns in place before we actually came and mounted and anchored our post. So as we're talking about that with the post specifically, I can show you what we ended up doing was going, just anchoring on top of this travertine, which originally we were unsure of the material of this and if we were going to be able to drill through and how it would do, but this ended up drilling really nicely, so it ended up being easier for the tile guys or travertine guys to actually go ahead and lay all of this down and not have to work around our post, and then us just come and surface mount on top of this. And then you got this nice skirt that covers up everything and dresses it up to make a nice clean finish with this surface mounted post. Okay, on the second thing on here, right here at the gate, they wanted to do a really focal point, entry point here. So they went with the columns and then the arch double gate. And so we actually fabricated this gate to match the other fence that's going around here. And then since it's a pool, we have the Magna latch, safety latch that has to have the top pull. So that's designed for a kid not to be able to just come hit something. You actually have to be up and pull up to release that. That releases and then opens up here. Now, with this being a double, it's got a drop rod that holds this one side stationary, so you can't just go out of one at a time, or if you needed a bigger opening, you could pull this rod and open all the way up. And then these hinges are not your standard typical hinges. These are a spring-loaded hinge, so that once, and that is also designed with the pool in mind, so that once somebody comes out, it closes back behind us, stays closed and secure for the pool area. With the pool specifically, it's a little bit more involved on our layout because we have a defined area on the pool area, and we want to strategically place and plan out these sections. So if you can see here, these come in a standard 8-foot section. So that's what we're working with, or that's our original constraint, is that it's an 8-foot section. Now we can cut these down, but we don't want to do a whole bunch of cutting and waste material. So if you can see here, the measurements here worked out to where we centered these, let's see, this 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So we strategically placed those 4 sections, and then to keep it symmetrical, we did a 5-foot piece here on this end and a 5-foot piece here on that end. But why that matters is if we would have just started at this end on this run specifically, if we would have just started with 8 feet, then it would have come here, and then and we just went all full 8-foot sections, it was going to end up being down here with a post just like 2 feet away from the last column and have some little 2-foot funky piece, which aesthetically we didn't want that. So we backed up, kind of did some head scratching, figuring out on our math to where we could get two equal sections on the end and make this work both functionally and aesthetically. You can see we mirrored that on that side, and then actually on the back did something similar too, where we centered the full sections and then did symmetrical sections on the ends. So that's one way you can do it. You can also, once you get to an end, if you've got some sections that aren't going to be exactly divisible by 8, you can start to adjust those to kind of blend them or make them, you know, look a little bit more symmetrical. But especially on a pool in a confined space, you want to think through your layout, how you're going to position your sections whenever you're setting posts and planning for a fence like this. Okay, so when we first walked this, before any of the columns were here, now the pool deck concrete was here, none of the travertine, but we were talking through, hey, we want to have columns on the corners and columns at the gates. So the next thing we talked through was, okay, how wide are these columns going to be? And then how do you want to orient your fence in relation to the column? So here, these are roughly 2 feet by 2 feet, and they wanted to center the fence sections on the column, so it makes it all centered and aligned. And we talked about that before the columns were even here, because that keeps it centered with the column, but it also brings it in from the edge, that roughly 1 foot. So that's something you need to consider, because if it was a tighter space, you may consider wanting to recoup some of this real estate, and you would then maybe want to orient your fence more toward the edge of the column and then keep it all in line off of the edge. But something to think through and to plan for when you're integrating the fence with a column and determining where your reference point's going to be, whether that's going to be centered or on the outer edge, and then basing your layout or your post placement off of that. That also comes into effect a lot of times if you're doing a railing, so like a handrail or porch rail. A lot of times there's cases where we're integrating with either a column like this or a big porch post, and so you'll want to know or think through how you want to orient that railing in relation to those columns and that post. So that's a good example and something to consider on your next project. Hey, thanks for checking out this fence with us today. I hope that was helpful. Make sure and like this video, it helps out a ton, and subscribe to the channel for more fences just like this.